There are comedians who make people laugh, and then there's Melissa McCarthy, a performer who doesn't just act in scenes, she completely breaks them apart in real time. The moment she steps onto a set, something strange happens. Scripts start falling apart, co-stars lose focus, and entire crews struggle to hold their composure. And the wildest part, it almost never looks planned. It feels like controlled chaos unfolding in real time. Across some of Hollywood's biggest comedy productions, Melissa has built a reputation that is almost dangerous, not because she ruins scenes, but because she makes them too funny to survive intact. Even the most disciplined actors, stunt performers, and directors find themselves pulled into moments where professionalism simply stops existing. And what follows are some of the most uncontrollable behind-the-scenes moments ever captured. Melissa McCarthy doesn't just deliver comedy, she has built a career defined by destabilizing every scene she enters. In an industry where most comedy performances rely on timing, structure, and carefully controlled improvisation, McCarthy's style is the opposite: escalation, unpredictability, and absolute commitment to absurdity. Across film sets, interviews, and blooper reels spanning more than 2 decades, she has earned a reputation as one of Hollywood's most reliable scene breakers, a performer whose presence often forces even veteran actors to abandon composure. That reputation became especially visible in her collaborations with Dwayne Johnson. Johnson is widely regarded as one of the most disciplined performers in modern blockbuster cinema. Before becoming a global film star, he was one of the most successful professional wrestlers of all time in WWE history, where maintaining character control under pressure is essential. In Hollywood, he carried that same discipline into billion-dollar franchises such as Fast and Furious Presents, Hobbs and Shaw and Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, films that collectively earned over $1 billion worldwide. Against that level of control, McCarthy's improvisational style creates a deliberate collision. During one infamous improvised sequence, a simple conversational beat spiraled into a surreal dream narrative involving a squirrel transforming into Hugh Jackman. The scene then escalated further as McCarthy added increasingly irrational details, including a claim that she wished she had been a big juicy nut in the dream, followed by a sudden revelation that she was part kangaroo. From a performance analysis perspective, what makes this moment effective is not narrative logic, but emotional certainty. McCarthy delivers every line with full psychological conviction, a technique often described in improvisational acting as truthing the absurd. Instead of signaling that the material is comedic, she treats it as emotionally real, forcing co-actors to respond instinctively rather than theatrically. The result is visible breakdown. Johnson, despite years of performing in high-pressure, multi-million-dollar action productions, can be seen physically losing composure, bending forward, covering his face, and struggling to regulate breathing as laughter overtakes the scene. In performance terms, this is significant. Professional actors are trained to maintain continuity even under comedic pressure, yet McCarthy's unpredictability disrupts that training loop entirely. This pattern is consistent across multiple productions. In Bridesmaids, a film that grossed approximately $288 million worldwide on a budget of around $32.5 million, McCarthy's improvisational performance as Megan became one of the most discussed elements of the entire film. The movie itself earned an Academy Award nomination for McCarthy for Best Supporting Actress, a rare recognition for a role heavily shaped by improvisation in a mainstream comedy. One of the most infamous improvisational sequences from that era involved an escalating verbal breakdown where McCarthy's character shifts from casual argument to extreme absurdity within seconds. The structure of the scene collapses into exaggerated threats and emotionally committed nonsense. While the specific wording is intentionally chaotic, what matters from a performance standpoint is escalation velocity. McCarthy repeatedly increases emotional intensity faster than her co-actors can reset, creating what directors often describe as comedy overload, where reaction time is no longer sufficient to maintain structure. This same mechanism defines her work alongside real-life husband Ben Falcone, with whom she has collaborated in multiple films and writing projects. Their long-term creative partnership began in improvisational comedy environments such as The Groundlings, a Lowe's Angels-based sketch and improv institution that has trained numerous major comedy performers. Their shared background and unscripted performance creates a unique dynamic. Instead of stabilizing scenes, they're familiarity often accelerates improvisation. On set, this results in repeated breakdowns of composure. In multiple behind-the-scenes accounts from their collaborations, scenes involving McCarthy and Falcone frequently require additional takes due to uncontrollable laughter from cast and crew. In one commonly cited pattern, McCarthy escalates minor scripted conflict into extended improvisational runs involving exaggerated physicality and increasingly abstract insults, forcing Falcone and surrounding cast members into visible struggle to maintain character continuity. From a production standpoint, this kind of disruption is notable because film sets operate on strict scheduling constraints. A single broken take can cost minutes to hours depending on lighting resets, camera blocking, and continuity adjustments. McCarthy's improvisational style increases the likelihood of repeated resets, which is precisely why her bloopers have become widely circulated. They contain genuine production breakdowns rather than controlled comedic beats. The same effect appears in her collaboration-heavy ensemble work, where even highly experienced performers struggle to maintain composure. In comedy, sustained character break is statistically rare in professional environments, yet McCarthy's scenes generate repeated instances of it across different casts, suggesting that her method functions less as traditional acting and more as controlled improvisational disruption. In many of these moments, humor is driven by extreme specificity, a known principle in comedy writing where overly detailed or unexpected language increases cognitive dissonance in the audience. McCarthy amplifies this effect by combining hyperspecific physical claims, sudden tonal shifts, and emotionally grounded delivery. Whether referencing absurd physical descriptions or abruptly shifting into mundane observations like consumer products, the contrast creates what comedy theorists describe as incongruity overload. In practical terms, this is why simple phrases become catastrophic on set. When McCarthy treats an ordinary detail as emotionally significant, surrounding performers must decide in real time whether to treat it seriously or break character, and the speed of that decision-making process often fails under pressure. By the mid-2010s, McCarthy had become one of Hollywood's most commercially successful comedy stars. Films such as Spy, The Heat, and Tammy collectively generated hundreds of millions of dollars globally, with Spy alone earning over $235 million worldwide. She was also repeatedly ranked by Forbes among the world's highest-paid actresses, reflecting both critical and commercial dominance in the comedy genre. Yet beyond financial metrics, McCarthy's defining impact lies in performance disruption. Her improvisational approach consistently increases laughter density on set, a term used in production environments to describe frequency of unscripted breaks per scene. In McCarthy-led sequences, that density is significantly higher than typical ensemble comedy shoots, largely due to her escalation-based improvisation style. Ultimately, Melissa McCarthy's legacy is not just built on scripted success, but on the repeated collapse of controlled environments into spontaneous comedy. Whether working with blockbuster action stars, comedy veterans, or ensemble casts, her presence fundamentally changes the rhythm of a scene. In professional terms, she does not simply perform within a frame, she destabilizes it, often leaving behind moments where the boundary between acting and genuine human reaction disappears entirely. Melissa McCarthy's reputation for turning controlled film sets into unpredictable bursts of chaos is rooted in a very specific acting method: high-commitment improvisation combined with rapid escalation. Across a career spanning more than 25 years, she's become one of Hollywood's most recognizable comedic forces, with films collectively grossing well over $1 billion worldwide and multiple projects ranking among the highest-earning comedies of their release years. One of the clearest patterns in her work is how quickly a serious take can collapse the moment pressure is added around laughter control. In professional film production, actors are routinely instructed to maintain continuity even when something unexpected happens. However, with McCarthy, the opposite effect often occurs. The moment a director or co-actor signals, "Stay serious," the psychological pressure increases, and the likelihood of breaking character rises sharply. This is a well-known phenomenon in performance psychology. Suppression of laughter increases cognitive load, making humor triggers more effective. In McCarthy's scenes, that effect is amplified because her improvisation is fast, emotionally committed, and highly specific. In multiple behind-the-scenes accounts from comedy productions, including projects like Spy and The Heat, cast members freak. And TLY describes scenes where repeated takes were required due to uncontrollable laughter. While exact break counts are not officially published, interviews with filmmakers such as Paul Feig suggest that McCarthy-led improvisation often increases the number of retakes per scene compared to standard scripted comedy setups. This is largely because her delivery style encourages spontaneous reaction rather than rehearsed timing. This dynamic becomes especially visible in ensemble bloopers, where the entire cast struggles to maintain continuity. In one frequently referenced type of breakdown, McCarthy's escalating improvisation pushes a scene beyond recoverable structure. As actors attempt to stay in character, laughter suppression leads to what production crews jokingly describe as full-set failure, where multiple departments, acting, camera, and sound, must pause simultaneously. In extreme cases, crew members off-camera also lose composure, turning the set into a shared reaction environment rather than a controlled filming space. Her collaborations with Jason Statham in Spy demonstrate another important contrast in performance styles. Statham is known for his highly controlled physical acting, built on action cinema discipline, where precision and emotional restraint are essential. His films, including major franchises like Fast and Furious, depend on maintaining intensity without breaking character. Against that backdrop, McCarthy's improvisational style creates deliberate contrast disruption. In scenes where she delivers exaggerated or logically absurd dialogue, such as extended, emotionally committed rants involving exaggerated medical or survival scenarios, the humor emerges from incongruity. Cognitive comedy theory describes this as incongruity escalation, where meaning becomes funnier as it becomes less structurally coherent but more emotionally sincere. In practical terms, Statham's reactions in these scenes often involve visible composure breakdown, laughter suppression, physical turn away from camera, and interruption of dialogue flow. These are standard indicators in film production of character break events, which are typically edited out but preserved in blooper reels due to audience appeal. Another recurring feature of McCarthy's improvisation is what comedy researchers refer to as self-interruption humor, moments where the performer accidentally breaks their own line. For example, when an actor begins a sentence that deviates from intended tone and immediately reacts to it in real time. These moments are statistically rare in scripted performance, but more common in improvisational environments. McCarthy's rapid cognitive pacing increases the likelihood of such events, which often leads to stronger audience response because the reaction feels unfiltered and authentic. This is also why her mistake humor moments tend to land more strongly than scripted jokes. When she interrupts herself midline, the comedic value is doubled, once from the accidental phrasing and again from her immediate emotional reaction. Performance studies often note that this combination of error plus genuine response produces higher audience engagement than structured punchlines alone. Her improvisational style also frequently uses hyperspecific absurdity, a technique where overly detailed or unnecessary information is inserted into dialogue to increase comedic contrast. In ensemble comedy environments, this technique is particularly effective because it forces surrounding actors to decide instantly whether to treat the detail as serious or comedic. That decision-making delay is one of the primary triggers for laughter breakdowns. Even small improvised segments, such as exaggerated commentary on everyday objects, follow this same structure. When McCarthy assigns emotional importance to trivial details, it creates tonal imbalance, which the human brain interprets as humorous disruption. This is consistent with established comedy theory used in both screenwriting and improvisation training programs. In scenes with actors such as Jude Law, known for his classical training and dramatic precision, this contrast becomes even more visible. Law's performance background includes Shakespearean theater and high-budget dramatic cinema, where timing and tonal consistency are tightly controlled. Against McCarthy's improvisational unpredictability, this produces what filmmakers describe as tone collision comedy, where one performer anchors realism while the other destabilizes it. Production accounts from ensemble comedy sets also highlight a recurring technical issue. Repeated laughter breaks increase shooting times significantly. In standard film production, a single comedic scene might require 3-8 takes for coverage. In highly improvisational scenes involving McCarthy, anecdotal reports from cast interviews suggest that take counts can rise substantially due to uncontrollable breaks, particularly when multiple actors are seated simultaneously. While exact figures vary by production, this pattern contributes to longer shooting schedules and higher blooper reel output compared to typical scripted comedies. Ultimately, what defines Melissa McCarthy's impact is not just the content of her jokes, but the reaction density she generates. Few performers consistently trigger synchronized breakdowns across cast and crew at such frequency. Her improvisational method transforms structured filmmaking environments into reactive performance spaces where control is temporarily suspended. This is why, across films like Bridesmaids, Spy, and The Heat, her most memorable moments are rarely the scripted ones. Instead, they are the unpredictable interruptions, the sudden tonal shifts, accidental line breaks, and emotionally committed absurdities that consistently push even professional actors into uncontrollable laughter. Even physically demanding stunt work hasn't always been immune to the chaotic ripple effect of Melissa McCarthy's on-set presence. In film production, stunt sequences are typically treated as the most controlled part of filming, carefully choreographed, rehearsed, and executed with strict safety coordination between performers, stunt teams, and camera operators. Even a minor mistake usually triggers an immediate cut to reset the sequence. However, in comedy-driven productions featuring McCarthy, that rigid structure can sometimes collapse into improvisational reactions when the unexpected happens. While specific production incident logs are rarely made public in detail, cast and crew interviews from projects like Spy and The Heat consistently describe a recurring pattern. When something goes slightly off script, McCarthy's immediate instinct is not to freeze the moment, but to react to it humorously. This shifts the energy on set from technical correction to emotional response. In film psychology terms, this is known as continuity disruption laughter, where unscripted errors become comedic triggers rather than production failures. That effect becomes even more visible in ensemble blooper environments, where timing-sensitive physical comedy and stunt coordination intersect with improvisation. A minor slip or mistimed action, which would normally result in a reset, often becomes part of the comedic momentum because McCarthy's reaction reframes the situation instantly. Instead of treating the mistake as a break in continuity, she often amplifies it through improvisation, encouraging other performers to respond emotionally rather than technically. This creates a chain reaction, where control shifts away from structured staging and towards spontaneous group reaction. By the time the blooper material from Ghostbusters became widely circulated, that pattern had become even more recognizable. The film itself, a large-scale studio production involving extensive visual effects, stunt coordination, and ensemble comedy timing, required tightly synchronized performances to maintain continuity across complex scenes. However, behind the scenes, McCarthy's improvisational style repeatedly disrupted the expected rhythm of scripted delivery. One of the most infamous recurring moments involves her struggle with the phrase full torso transmogrification. In performance terms, this type of dialogue is structurally difficult because it combines technical-sounding language with comedic intent, requiring precise articulation under comedic pressure. McCarthy's repeated attempts to deliver the phrase correctly became a self-reinforcing comedic loop. Each mispronunciation triggered laughter from cast members, which in turn increased the difficulty of completing the line cleanly. In film production environments, this is a classic example of feedback loop laughter, where audience reaction directly interferes with performer execution. Instead of stabilizing the scene, the repetition intensified it. Each failed attempt functioned like an escalation point rather than a reset, gradually increasing emotional pressure across the entire set. This is one of the reasons blooper reels from such productions often appear more chaotic than the final film itself. They preserve the breakdown of performance control that normally gets edited out. In the same sequence of bloopers, McCarthy shifts from technical difficulty into full improvisational expansion, delivering an exaggerated monologue involving detailed and surreal descriptions of bodily functions and absurd physical imagery. From a performance analysis perspective, this style falls under hyper-improvisational escalation, where a performer continuously increases absurdity until the original scene structure becomes irrelevant. The humor emerges not from a single punchline, but from sustained unpredictability layered over collapsing structure. What makes these moments particularly notable in ensemble cinema is the shared reaction dynamic. In controlled filming environments, actors are trained to maintain continuity awareness, ensuring that emotional tone, blocking, and timing remain consistent across multiple takes. However, when one performer consistently escalates unpredictability, the entire ensemble is forced into reactive mode. Instead of maintaining continuity, actors begin responding to each other's laughter, hesitation, and improvisation in real time. This creates what directors often describe as cascade breakdown, where one deviation leads to multiple subsequent failures in timing and delivery. McCarthy's long-standing collaboration with directors like Paul Feig demonstrates how this unpredictability is not treated as a problem, but as a creative tool. In multiple interviews, Feig has described her improvisational process as something that frequently generates unexpected material that can be adapted into final cuts or used to shape tone during editing. This reflects a broader trend in modern comedy filmmaking, where bloopers and improvisations are not merely discarded, but often analyzed for usable comedic rhythm. Even in high-budget productions with extensive planning and scheduling, sometimes costing millions of dollars per week in production time, McCarthy's improvisational impact is often considered a calculated risk. While uncontrolled laughter can extend shooting schedules, it also produces moments of authenticity that scripted dialogue rarely achieves. This trade-off between efficiency and spontaneity is a well-known dynamic in comedy production environments. Ultimately, what defines Melissa McCarthy's on-set presence is not simply that she tells jokes, but that she alters the behavioral structure of everyone around her. In standard filmmaking, actors perform within a controlled emotional frame. Around McCarthy, that frame becomes unstable. Performers begin reacting instead of performing, crews begin laughing instead of observing, and scenes begin shifting from structured storytelling into live emotional reaction. That is why her bloopers consistently feel different from typical behind-the-scenes footage. They are not just failed takes, they are documented moments of controlled collapse, where the boundary between performance and genuine reaction temporarily disappears. And this is exactly why Melissa McCarthy remains one of the most unpredictable forces in modern comedy history. If you want more deep dive breakdowns like this, where we analyze the hidden mechanics behind legendary Hollywood moments, bloopers, and on-set chaos, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned, because the next breakdown might just be the moment an entire movie set collapsed for the funniest reason imaginable.